Hello, Elizabeth. May and I just want to say how much we appreciate the incredible work you've done for all these years as a leader of the Green Party.
Elizabeth, there is no disputing the contribution you have made to Canada and to our nation's public life.
Elizabeth, my dear friend Elizabeth, I got many thanks to give you, but especially I want to thank you for all those dedication, those years as the Green Party leader of Canada. You were amazing.
Thank you, Elizabeth May, for your passion and your hard work, leading the Green Party of Canada, building the environmental movement, and being such an exemplary MP representing your constituents and all Canadians.
Thank you for your tenacity, for your beauty, for your humor, for your astonishing brilliance, and for your friendship. I love and admire you far more than words can say.
Elizabeth, thank you on behalf of all Canadian governments for the marvelous job that you've done in helping us all find our new way to the environment for a new Canada.
I want to add my voice to the voices of so many in thanking you for your extraordinary leadership.
Elizabeth, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being a mentor, for being an inspiration, for being a model of what we needed to see in politics and what we need to keep seeing. You have been so important to me. I love you to bits. And I am so grateful for everything you've done for the Greens, but more importantly, for everything you've done for Canadians.
They figured out that there was someone quite young and female working behind the scenes, and they wanted to make that a story and discredit the whole movement.
The process was flawed from the get-go by lack of procedural fairness, the abuse of the rights of interveners in that process, and the courts will rule on that.
The thing about you, Elizabeth, is that you see opportunities where no one else does. Opportunities to change the course of history. You make things happen, and you inspire others to do the same.
No one was more helpful than Elizabeth May. She was the spark plug of major changes in attitudes on the environment in Canada and action by the Government of Canada. From the national parks we established, to the Acid Rain Treaty, to the Montreal Protocol, to the depollution of the St. Lawrence River and the Great Lakes. Elizabeth was at my side, playing a very key and valuable role as an advisor and as a doer. She was a doer, and she made things happen in the environment and ministry for all those years.
And look where Greens in Canada are today. A Green caucus in Parliament, a Green official opposition in PEI, Green MLAs in New Brunswick, Ontario, and British Columbia, all within the first-past-the-post electoral system, which we were not supposed to be able to crack, starting with your first win in Saanich-Gulf Island.
I want to salute you for your principled tenacity, but I want to salute you most for just being an intelligent, passionate, imaginative, charismatic, eclectic, eccentric leader of the Green Party.
Gaelic Husla for all that you have done and all that you will continue to do.
Greens get elected is because of one secret ingredient called democracy.
We're too committed to saying Mother Earth.
Fighting for the environment, you mobilized tens of thousands of Canadians. You should be so proud of what you've accomplished. And I am very proud to say that Elizabeth May is my friend.
We could have arrested climate change before our glaciers were melting, before we were losing the Arctic, before our forests were on fire, before we saw drought and climate refugees and tornadoes in Ottawa. We had a chance in the 1990s and we blew it. The good news is we still have a chance to save ourselves. The grandchildren I tuck into bed at night, all of us know those children. They are our children. We have one chance to ensure that in their natural lifespans, they enjoy a hospitable biosphere that has sustained humanity since we first got up and walked on two legs.
Well, good evening and welcome to the 10th anniversary celebration of Elizabeth May's election as an MP. I know Elizabeth is just thrilled that so many of you have been able to attend tonight. I'm Harold Hommel. I'm the CEO of the SGI Greens EDA, and I'll help guide us through the evening. Now, just a quick comment about that video. Wasn't that something? Just incredible. So for those of you that are familiar with Zoom, you can show us your love or appreciation of it right now. And for those who aren't, well, we're going to teach you a little bit later about how to do some of that. So we have a wonderful evening planned for you tonight with many special guests, as you've probably seen already. We'll start with some housekeeping with the agenda, and then go back to school for a moment with some Zoom basics, and then we'll move on to the important items of the guest speakers and the Dutch auction in support of Annamie Paul's campaign in Toronto Centre. So before all that, I'll start with an acknowledgement that I live, work, and play on the unceded territory of the Wasanic peoples, and that many of you are also on other unceded First Nations territories. We are most fortunate to receive this gift, and I think we agree that we want to pass the land on in good condition to future generations. Now, for those of you that had an agenda, there are a few changes to the agenda. The Honorable Pat Carney moves from position 12 to position 5, speaking after Ken Wu. And then farther down at position 15, please cross out Adam Olsen. I regret to inform you that he has just quit politics. I think I just saw Sonia's jaw hit the floor there. Sorry, I just wanted to see if you guys were paying attention. No, he hasn't quit politics, but he is moving up on the agenda to be speaking right after the Honorable Pat Carney. So on to Zoom School. For those of you on PCs and Apple computers, at the bottom of the Zoom screen, you'll see a square called Reactions. When you click on that, you'll see a number of emojis on the top row. So if you click on one of those, yeah, go ahead if you want to, it'll appear at the top left of your screen for about 10 seconds. Now that's the first row. In the second row below it, there's usually a bubble with a hand image. And when you raise that, it stays up. And we're going to be using that in the Dutch auction. So we'll have runners who will be able to come in and talk to the people to check what you were bidding for in the auction, etc. The other thing that we just wanted to mention quickly was there are 3 dots for most of you if you're using a PC or an Apple computer at the top right hand of your screen. And if you click on those, you get a little drop-down menu. One of the choices is rename. So we would ask that you put in your correct name so that it's easier for the runners during the auction to make a correct identification. And I think that covers the housekeeping parts. So we're going to move into the speaker.
Harold, you forgot the part to tell people where the washrooms are.
Okay, look at the bottom right. Good. So let's move on, and because we don't want to use up too much time here. Elizabeth will run through some of those instructions again when we get through to the Dutch auction. So we are going to start with a video from Annamie Paul, the new leader of the Green Party. It's late in Toronto, obviously, so she sent us a video. Alexa is going to start that right away, and I really admire Annamie because she's going to be challenging the Liberals in Toronto Centre in the next election.
I wanted to take this opportunity to wish you a very, very happy 10th anniversary of service to your community as a member of Parliament. I remember when I was thinking about joining the Green Party, that I did all the due diligence that many of our new members do. I read our Constitution, I visited EDA meetings, I read our statements online, and when I had done all of those things, I was certainly pretty convinced. But one of the things that I also wanted to be was inspired. And I wanted to know that there was a leader of the party that could inspire me and that would inspire others as well. And so learning about you as a new person coming into the party, I found the inspiration that I was looking for. Someone who had an incredibly deep policy knowledge, not just deep, but an incredible breadth of knowledge. You've certainly earned your award as the Maclean's most knowledgeable parliamentarian, that's for sure. And also someone who has a tremendous empathy as well. Someone who really understood why she was there, both leading as a member of parliament, but also as someone who was there understanding the role that she played representing her local community. And so I found the inspiration that I was looking for, and I know that the people of Saanich-Gulf Islands are so lucky to have you. So lucky to have someone who always goes the extra mile, who understands that the bond between a member of parliament and their constituents is a sacred one, one that should be nurtured, one that should be reflected every day in their work. And I also want to say thank you on behalf of our members all across the country for being the first. It's always a challenge. Being the first, you don't have your colleague in the Green Party when you arrived to look to say what comes next. But you were able to do the work in a way that created an access for the MPs that were to come. And after a number of years on your own, being joined by Jenica and Paul is definitely a reflection of all of the work that you had done as an MP and for the Green Party over many, many years. So I hope that you're taking this opportunity to celebrate. I hope that you're taking this opportunity to look back on an incredible record of accomplishment with pride. Thank you for being an inspiration to me and to so many of our members for so many years. And thank you for the work that you continue to do day in, day out tirelessly on our behalf and on behalf of people all across Canada and people all around the world. Happy 10th anniversary, Elizabeth, and enjoy your day.
Well, we'll have to send our thanks to Annamie for the kind thoughts in that video. Moving on, our first live speaker is David Kuhn, leader of the Green Party of New Brunswick. David trained as a biologist and has worked as an environmental educator, organizer, activist, etc. for many years before moving into politics. David, how did you become connected to Elizabeth? Whoops, I think you need to unmute. Yeah. Looks like we're having a few technical difficulties there at the moment.
Just want to say, Harold, when President Biden had the summit, they suddenly said, and now with Vladimir Putin in the middle of Macron's address. So these things happen, even to well-oiled machines like us.
I
think we should acknowledge a cameo appearance by Janice Harvey.
No, he's not muted. David, should we move on? Is it a microphone issue?
Green Party charades. Okay, so sounds like. Sorry, David. And love to Janice, and I hope you can connect.
Right.
Well, David, if David wants to talk, I'll just say what I think he's saying. How about that? Would that be fun? I'll just make stuff up and see if, and then he can tell me later if I got it near what he was trying to say. How's that?
Yeah, I think David, we heard some sounds there.
He's put a message into the chat.
Okay.
Move on and come back to me.
Okay.
And David, sometimes it really works to just log out and come back, and your sound will work. That's one of the things I found with Zoom.
Right. Well, sorry, Mike, if you thought you had a break, you don't, because you're next. So we have Mike Schreiner, who's the Ontario Green MPP, and of course also the leader of the Green Party of Ontario. Mike was a small business owner whose ventures have focused on sustainable food production and other things. Mike, tell us about your connection with Elizabeth.
Well, first of all, I can't believe it's been 10 years, Elizabeth. Oh, I think I hear David. Elizabeth, congratulations on 10 years. And it's just hard to believe that my time as leader of the Green Party of Ontario has overlapped with your trailblazing performances as Canada's first Green MP. And I just want to thank you for inspiring me and so many other Greens with your unwavering commitment to climate action and your steadfast dedication to building the Green Party and the Green political movement. And for those of you who don't know this, for the longest time, my daughters thought the only way you could be leader of a Green Party in Canada was to have been born in the US and born on June 9th, which is something both Elizabeth and I share. And so it's too bad Annamie's not here, because my wife, Sandy, told me that the best thing about Elizabeth retiring and Annamie becoming the new leader of the party is that my wife and I would actually start spending our birthdays together, because I can't tell you how many June 9th political events I've been a part of over the last decade that was a big birthday party for Elizabeth and me and a big cake that ended up being a fundraiser for the Green Party. So my family could actually start celebrating birthdays together instead of actually raising money for the Green Party. But I want to say that the best birthday gift that Elizabeth ever helped deliver to me was being elected as Ontario's first Green MPP 2 days before my 49th birthday. And that campaign was kicked off by Elizabeth insisting that we would have the biggest political rally ever in the history of Guelph. And she talked David Suzuki into coming and making it happen. And she insisted that we find the largest venue in Guelph. It absolutely had to be the largest venue in Guelph, which was a convention center that holds about 1,000 people. And my staff was completely stressed out. But of course, Elizabeth and David helped pack the event, standing room only, and that launched what became the campaign to elect Ontario's first Green MPP. So thank you, Elizabeth, for all your amazing work, your friendship, your mentorship, and your leadership.
Well, thank you very much, Mike. Really appreciate your words. Our next speaker is Ken Wu. Ken is the former executive director and co-founder of the Ancient Forest Alliance. He has worked to protect ancient forests in BC for over a quarter century, starting with the Walburn Valley. Ken, how did you first connect with Elizabeth?
Okay, everybody hear me? Can you guys hear me? Excellent. Yeah, I was, well, I followed Elizabeth since I was about 11, 12, watching on the TV news the battle for Haida Gwaii for the South Moresby National Park back then. And I then followed her very closely as I went into university and got heavily involved in the ancient forest campaigns directly. And I remember seeing her come out to the Vancouver train station during the Clayoquot Sound protests of 1993. Actually, I think she came a couple times. And, you know, and then from there, I followed her very closely. She was everywhere in the news, on par with Suzuki, really, as sort of like the environmental catalyst for so much of the country. And with her passions being exactly the two great passions I've had, which is protecting nature and old growth forests. She wrote a book on protecting forests across the country at the cutting edge, as well as global warming for dummies. So when she came to announce that she was interested in running in Saanich-Gulf Islands, I was more than happy to jump in there and help her as her communications and events coordinator for Saanich-Gulf Islands. And I remember one of the first things that I did is I helped organize a big rally at the Victoria Conference Center. I wasn't sure, seeing that she was from the East Coast, how great her clout would be to attract a crowd. And we turned out 1,000 people at the Countdown to Copenhagen event. So even despite coming from the East Coast, the scale of momentum behind everything she did has always been huge for decades. She's sort of like the Greta Thunberg of Canada for the last 45 years, I think. So she's, is that the right analogy? But she's been like a huge catalyst for environmental activism for millions of Canadians. And, you know, if you think about, you know, we all say that everyone's special, you know, everyone's exceptional. And yeah, that's basically true, but that's definitely true of Elizabeth May. When you think about individuals who really shine, you know, like, among the most dedicated individuals in the conservation movement, the smartest of the smart, the most eloquent among the eloquent, the hardest working of the hard workers, and the highest achiever of high achievers in the environmental movement, that is Elizabeth. She's been a one-person revolution, who's been the Trojan horse, who has basically, through the first past the post, opened the door for generations of Greens. And in the end, nobody, no matter how much money you have, is going to escape the effects of ecological degradation and catastrophic climate change, unless you're Elon Musk and you escape to Mars, but that won't be a very happy life either. So the Greens are the future. Elizabeth May has been a one-person revolution that has opened the door for generations, and I'm most grateful for Elizabeth and support everything she does. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much, Ken. Obviously, her enthusiasm and passion really seem to affect you as well, because I think we need you out there working for us in the same way she is. That's just super. And I understand that our team in the background has been working very hard, and David Kuhn, I think, is ready. He's got rid of the gremlins. So why don't we pass it on to you, David? How did you and Elizabeth get your start?
I think the first question is, can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, I've got a green light now on my little thing here, so that's excellent. Good evening, everybody, and thank you very much. So I'm speaking to you, of course, from Fredericton and the traditional unceded territory of the Wolastoqey people. Elizabeth and I, well, you know, that's sort of lost in the mists of the Bay of Fundy somewhere, I think, back in time. We both certainly were working in the environmental movement in the Maritimes, and I expect I probably was first introduced to Elizabeth through my wife, Janice Harvey, who she and her had been friends for many years. So that was how we met, I'm sure. It's incredible that it's been 10 years, Elizabeth, that this is just amazing. I remember when Elizabeth got elected, it was extraordinary. It demonstrated to all of us that it was possible. It was a breakthrough for a Green to get elected in this country. But it didn't seem quite real until two things happened. First, when I went to Ottawa and visited Elizabeth in her parliamentary office, which was extraordinary. I still remember going up the elevator to find her office and meet her there. So that made it half real. She was in the House of Commons, she was in Parliament, and then traveling out to SGI and visiting with her in her constituency office and meeting her constituency staff, that became really, really real. So those were exciting and heady times, and it certainly changed my life and our family's life as I made the decision, inspired by Elizabeth, to go into politics myself and run here in Fredericton-South, where I've been elected 3 times now. So Elizabeth has been every time, not just for me, but for many, many other candidates, so many candidates, always there on the ground during election time to support and wow the crowds, to shock and surprise people at their door unexpectedly. When we would go door knocking during campaigns, I delighted in seeing the look on people's face when it wasn't actually me knocking on the door for the election, but it was Elizabeth. And it was always hard to get her, as people know, away from the door from talking with folks. They were so keen to share time with her and she with them. And so, Elizabeth, thank you for all you have done for Canadians at large, for Greens, particularly across this country. And our party, our movement continues to grow, and Canadians continue to add their names to the growing list of voters who see a green future and a green government in their future.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, David. I didn't know that Elizabeth has such star power everywhere in the country, but I guess that's obviously quite true. Our next guest is the Honorable Pat Carney, former federal cabinet minister and also former senator. Pat, how did your relationship start with Elizabeth?
Well, as she mentioned, it was back, or as Prime Minister Mulroney mentioned, it was back in the days of with the Mulroney government when I was the cabinet minister political minister from BC, and I was Minister of Energy and then later International Trade. Elizabeth was the senior policy advisor to our Environment Minister, Tom McMillan. And this is at the time that they were trying to bring to the cabinet table Guayhanas, which is the national park in what then was known as Queen Charlotte. And Elizabeth's tired of me telling the story, but you know, it's hard to explain the atmosphere at that time because forestry is important to BC, but there was really little conception of what a national park would be. And I remember Premier Van der Zalm telling Brian Mulroney at one point, some of those spruce trees in the Queen Charlottes are 1,000 years old. They should have been logged years ago. So that was the kind of atmosphere we were trying to establish the park in a place nobody had really visited. I had been there several times, so we became friends and worked on other issues at the time. Remember, Elizabeth, John Fraser was important too. He was a big push behind that. But anyway, now she's my neighbor on Saturna. But I wanted to tell you that over those years since then, she told me several times she wanted to run for Parliament. And I also never approved of her choices. I never thought she was running in a proper place. You know, why are you running against so-and-so, that Liberal incumbent? You know, he's Mr. Moneybags. Why are you running against Peter MacKay? He's the president of the Progressive Conservative Party. And so and she ran and lost, you know, so I thought, well, I told her. And then when they came and she came and told me that you people had asked her to run in my riding of Saanich-Gulf Islands, I said, that's absolutely a crazy idea. We're a swing riding. We voted every which way. You'll be viewed as a carpetbagger. No one will ever vote for you. You're from the Maritimes. And she won. And then she won, you know, 3 times. She won in 2011. And she won in 2015, and she won in 2019, and she's going to win again. So Annamie can take heart about that. But I just wanted to highlight, we hear a lot about her as a Green MP, but she's had a stellar parliamentary career, and she successfully introduced amendments to government legislation, which is very difficult to do when you're a very small party in the House of Commons. Her private member's bill to increase prevention and awareness of Lyme's disease passed two houses of parliament, you know, the House of Commons and the Senate, and is now law. In 2012, she was named Parliamentarian of the Year by her colleagues. I mean, that's hard to do, but it reveals the secret of her success, which is her civility in Parliament. It can be a very raucous environment, and she's always a calm and civil. She knows everybody. Everybody loves her and likes her in Parliament, and so she gets things done for Canada and her constituents. And as a constituent, I can tell you, some of you who aren't, that she's relentless, you know, on behalf of her constituents. If you have a relative with visa problems somewhere, and I've done all of this as an MP for Vancouver-Centre, you know, she's on the phone to the minister. If you have a neighbor on a COVID entrapped ship somewhere, she's on the phone to the travel agent. And I also want to point out, she's got a stellar staff. She's got an absolutely amazing staff. So that's not common. So I was talking to the other day in Sydney, a small businessman who can't access a government program. And I said, well, you know, I'm going to pass that along to Elizabeth. And he said, I love Elizabeth. You know, I'm not a member of the Green Party, but I just love Elizabeth. So, you know, tell her to ask me, you know, to get in touch with me. So her success is across all party lines. It's in the House of Commons. It's effective. Her constituents love her, and but we can't be complacent. And that's why this is a fundraiser, because even in Canada, where we can proudly say we limit election spending, unlike many other countries, anyone can run for Parliament who's over 18 and not in jail. So as I keep reminding people who complain, and we have to ensure that she does win again in the next election, because she's just the best MP, as well as Green Party spokesman and leader, and first Green MP. She's also a wonderful constituency MP. So I want to thank you for inviting me to this 10th anniversary. Just don't ask me for political advice. Thank you. Not good at it. Okay.
Oh, wow. Thank you very much, Pat. Do you want to be in our next ad for your next election?
I certainly will for Elizabeth. So, and I've been there, done that. I know how hard it is to do what she does. I'm amazed at how effective she is. And I've, you know, as she knows, I've had my own successes, but I've also lost a lot too. It's amazing how effective she is. And I'm not sure everybody knows how hard she has to work to do it. And I'm also very happy to have her as a neighbor. I mean, you know, I asked her, she said, I'm in Sydney, what can I do? And I said, well, you could go to Shoppers Drugs and ask for sherry, and I'll pick up my beauty batik package. And she did. So there's a knock on the door, and there's Elizabeth, and there's my beauty batik. So great MP and a very good neighbor. So
what you call your full service MP.
Yeah.
Love you, Pat. Thank you.
We better not let that get out, Elizabeth. Otherwise, all sorts of people are going to be asking you to shop for them in Sydney. Well, you know, Pat really pointed out a couple of things that are important, I think. You know, the incredible accomplishments that Elizabeth has had in terms of getting private member bills passed, and secondly, that characteristics that she was talking about of persistence. And Elizabeth, of course, as you know, didn't win in her first election, but she did eventually, and she came out here, as Pat said, into a riding where, ooh, you think you're going to win here? And she did, and she has. So that's really incredible. Yeah, thank you very much, Pat. Well, next in our line of speakers is Adam Olsen, who is the current MLA, Green MLA, I should say, for Saanich North and the Islands. And Adam, why don't you tell us about your connection, how that started with Elizabeth?
Thank you. I was always wondering how I was going to retire from politics. So I think I'll just, when that day comes, Harold, I'll give you a call and I'll put you to good.
I'll be happy to help, you know.
It's a real honor to be here. And I think that as the MLA, the Green MLA for Saanich North and the Islands, in many respects, I'm the beneficiary of Elizabeth's incredible work in those earliest days from 2009 to that 2011 election, and then through 2013 to 2017, when I was able to really truly turn Saanich, that the territory that we represent, green both at the provincial level and at the federal level, I think Pat's comments are right, offer a nice opportunity for me to segue to what I was going to say about the relationship that Elizabeth and I have had over the last decade and a bit. It's hard to believe that we can say that it's been 11 or 12 years since we first met. When I heard Elizabeth was moving to Saanich North and the Islands, I sent her an email. I think many of you have probably heard this story, and thinking that it was going to go into the big vortex of leader at emails. I would say I've been a caretaker of a leader at email address before, and I understand the volume of emails that come into leader at Green Party email. And it was only a few minutes later that I got an email back, and a few days later, Elizabeth was sitting in our family home on Sartlik First Nation, and we were having a conversation. And as speakers before me have spoken, David and Ken in particular, with respect to Elizabeth's presence in Canadian, on the Canadian political landscape for her environmentalism, it was really Elizabeth's very, very compelling conversation that we had with her about her commitment to democracy and governance that captured the attention of myself and my family, and I think even the wider family, the Olsen family that was sitting in the living room with Elizabeth. And it's not that we're not, of course, environmentally minded people, of course we are, but it was really, we had come from an NDP nomination, federal NDP nomination in Saanich-Gulf Islands a few years earlier. And we really, as a family, were looking for a political home. And what Elizabeth talked about in those early days of her work with the small party and the commitment to democracy that I had not heard come from any representative that we had and that I had got to know here in Saanich North in the Islands, or Saanich-Gulf Islands federally. And I think that really captured our family. And I think that it really does demonstrate that I get to highlight this aspect of the relationship that people have with Elizabeth and Elizabeth's commitment to our system of government and the institutions that make decisions and provide direction for our communities and for our country. To highlight just the depth that Elizabeth offers in the constituency and in the House of Commons, as I think Pat so beautifully illustrated. I think that opening video is a tribute to Elizabeth, but it's also I think it's instructional for all people who want to run for the Greens. If you can have a video 10 years into your career that has party leaders from all the major political parties in this country willing to speak about the impact that you have had on them, I think you've been a very successful Green leader and a successful Green representative, because we have to find a way to be able to be constructive in our opposition and be constructive in what we are proposing. And that to me has been the spirit of Elizabeth's work that I have seen over the last 11 or 12 years that we've got to know each other. And I'm so honored to be able to serve alongside her as her political sibling here in the beautiful territory of Saanich. So with that, I'd like to congratulate you on your incredible success and thank you, Haisqua CM, for your incredible leadership and representation of this place that we share and that we love so much. And I look forward to continuing to work alongside you in the years to come. So with that, Haisqua CM, on behalf of our family and on behalf of all of the people that we represent here in Saanich.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate that, Adam. Very heartfelt comments. To change the pace, we now have a music video from Bob Bossin. Bob's a folk singer, songwriter, and one of his songs, Sulphur Passage, became the anthem for the Clayoquot Sound protesters and played a significant role in the preservation of the Clayoquot forest. Now, we're not sure if Bob is with us. If you are, Bob, speak up. If not, Alexa will go ahead with the video.
I'll just throw in quickly, Harold, that I'm embarrassed to be in this video because it features a lot of people who can really sing, and I'm not one of them. And Bob decided to do an Earth Day video and invited some awesome musicians from all around the world. So that's the lead into this. It was his idea. And he is, of course, on Gabriola. So he is a constituent of Paul Manley and someone who came out proudly and said he'd voted NDP in every election since he was old enough to vote until Paul was running. And he said, nope, not anymore, voting green. So that's my introduction to my dear friend, Bob Bossin.
Okay, thank you. Alexa has started. Good.
This guitar is made of cedar, from the body of a tree to the workshop of a luthier, and now it's on loan to me.
And it's good company after dinner, and it fits my hands just fine. But someday another singer with a pair of hands like mine will coax at songs much prettier, still hiding in his strings, and sing strong, braver words than I could ever sing. And folks are gonna love it. Of this I'm almost sure. So I'll take good care of it, 'cause I'm borrowing it from her. Pass it along. Pass it along. May it land in careful hands when I'm gone. You carry for a moment, but time will loan it you for long. You don't own it, pass it along.
Well, this here's my country. Sometimes it's hard to recognize it, but I count myself lucky to have been born inside it. And I'm grateful for the rights others struggled hard to win. And you bet I'm gonna fight when they come to take them back again.
All and everywhere are teachers, though some fell along the way. But the words they said still reach us, just like you're teaching me today. And it may not be out loud, but it's there in what you do.
And I hope to make you proud, because I borrowed it from you.
Pass it along, pass it along.
We've been guided by our fear, but the river sings a song we gotta be quieter to hear.
It's in every child's face, new and hopeful lies a stand.
Best be gentle with this place, 'cause we're borrowing it from them. Pass it along, pass it along,
Pass it along.
may it land in careful hands when we're gone.
Lo tieni un solo momento, e il tempo non sarà mai lungo. You don't own it. Pass it along.
Pass it along, pass it along, may it land in careful hands when we're gone. You carry it for a moment, time won't loan it to you for long. You don't own it, pass it along.
Pass it along.
Wow. Wow. Thank you very much, Bob, and all the other people who helped in that wonderful song. Our next guest, David Suzuki, needs no introduction. He's been an environmental educator and activist for a long time.
You sure would.
David, how did your connection start with Elizabeth?
Well, it goes way back to a time when I can't even remember. My words were really said by Ken Wu and Pat Carney. They covered territory I had hoped to cover, but hearing Pat reminded me of an incident after the signing of the Guayhanas Agreement in Victoria with Van der Zam and Mulrooney. Jim Fulton, who was the MP for what's the area up there up north, said let's all go up to Haida Gwaii and celebrate this, because the Haida will all be having a great feast. So we jumped in a plane, and Tom McMillan loaned us his plane. I think that Elizabeth commandeered it. He didn't come with us, but we flew up to Sandspit and landed. And when we got out of the plane, all along the fence were the wives of loggers, and they were screaming, "You goddamn environmentalists, you've taken away our jobs." And it was really terrifying, because, you know, if we get in a fight, you can't slug it out with a woman. And these women were really mad, and we didn't want to go into the airport, and we didn't know what to do. And Elizabeth spotted a big Sikorsky helicopter, I guess belonging to DND or something. She just marched over.
Coast Guard. It was a Coast Guard. Sorry.
And you just said, I work with Tom McMillan, and we need that helicopter. And they all said, okay. We jumped in the chopper and flew over to Skidegate. What a great way to land in that village for this wonderful, that was a wonderful time we had together. And we've had many, Tara and I have had many, many happy times with her, including in the Amazon, and it goes way back. But I really have a speech I wanted to give. I just wrote it, and so I'd like to just give it now. And since March 13th, 2020, I'm still in my cabin in Wee-Wake Nation territory on Quadra Island, British Columbia, with a few months we had in the interval in Vancouver, completely in isolation. So I've been thinking a lot about where we will go after the pandemic is over. During the lockdown, the failure to provide clean water to Indigenous people across Canada, the inequities of their treatment, yet their environmental leadership has emerged. During that time, George Floyd was murdered and Black Lives Matter exploded, while Trump's dog whistles to racists with calls about the China virus and Kung flu fueled anti-Asian violence. And all the while, as billions suffered during the lockdown, the stock market soared to unprecedented levels, and the ultra rich got even richer. What a fucked up world that we live in desperate need of inspiration and role models to inform us there are other ways to a truly rich and sustainable future. And that's where I see this celebration of Elizabeth May. She's always led by providing an alternative to the divisive ideological practices of the political and corporate powers. And Pat Carney pointed that out very, very much. She's one who reaches across the aisles while never compromising her ecological values and perspective. During the lockdown, 3 of my inspirations and heroes died. Cowichan, a Kayapo man, Elizabeth knows him very well, who fought all his life against the forces of destruction of his home in the Amazon forest, but he lost out to COVID last year. David Schindler, one of the world experts on water and ecology, who used science so powerfully and fearlessly for environmental protection and Indigenous rights, died last month. And Tom Berger, a giant in Canada's history in the fight for Indigenous rights, social justice, and environmental protection. While another Canadian icon, Stephen Lewis, has terminal cancer. Let us celebrate our heroes while they are alive and can know how important they have been in shaping our lives and priorities. And Elizabeth belongs with this group of heroes as far as I'm concerned. Everyone here tonight will tell you why Elizabeth is a giant, what she has done, an icon in the fight to protect the future for coming generations, not just in her 10 years as a Green MP, but her entire life. But my joy is that after such a long and distinguished career, she is still here. She's vigorous, energized by love to inspire and guide us on a path into the future. So I want to honor Elizabeth May for all she has done so tirelessly and generously, and to celebrate that she is still here among us. We honor you, Elizabeth. We thank you for a lifetime of commitment and work. We recognize how hard you've worked to bring people together rather than cleaving society along partisan lines. And we want you to know how much we hope to receive from you from a life still far from over. We love you, Elizabeth.
Oh, David, Tara, I love you both so much. I'm not supposed to interrupt and say stuff in the middle. I don't deserve all that, David. You are the one who inspired the movement. You always have and you always will. And Tara, love you the most. And not that I don't love you as much as David or David as much as Tara. It's always a problem. I talk too much.
I love you, Elizabeth.
Wow, thank you, David. What a powerful message you presented. And I guess one of the important things that you pointed out is this alternative to divisive politics, which we need to master, I guess, so that we can tackle this whole climate issue and emergency. Wow. Moving on, our next guest is Sonja Ferstenell. Poor Sonia, she has to follow David. So Sonia, as you know, is the leader of the Green Party of British Columbia. Sonia first wowed me in a speech she gave in Kamloops about visiting East Germany with her father and seeing what not having democracy was like. And I've been a fan ever since. So Sonia, how did your relationship with Elizabeth start?
Well, thanks, Harold. Well, in fact, it's our 10-year anniversary, Elizabeth, because my relationship with Elizabeth started when I reached out to her when I was teaching at Spectrum High School, grade 11, and we had in the curriculum, of course, Canadian parliamentary democracy and climate change. And Elizabeth so generously came and spent an entire class with my grade 11s and taught them all about Canadian Parliament tradition and climate change. And I realized that I might be able to take advantage of that generosity a little bit, because this is the one thing that Elizabeth is so consistent. And so the next time I invited her was to come spend an entire day at the school I was teaching at up in Shawnigan Lake. And she came, and we had an essay contest for who got to have lunch with Elizabeth May. And the student who won at the end of the day reported that it had been the best day of his entire life. So even a grade 11 student can be absolutely wowed by Elizabeth, rightly so. And the generosity theme just kept going. When we were fighting the landfill in Shawnigan, Elizabeth said, well, I've been waiting for the issue that I'm going to get arrested on, and it looks like this is going to be it. She didn't have to get arrested for Shawnigan. You save that for TMX, Elizabeth, great place to get arrested. But it really rallied everybody in the community that you came repeatedly and stood with us on those roads against that contaminated landfill. And then the door knocking, as has already been talked about with Mike and David Kuhn, but it really is something to stand at a door with Elizabeth and for the person to open it and say, hi, I'm Elizabeth May. I think you should vote for Sonia. There's no door knocker like Elizabeth. In fact, I think, Elizabeth, you deserve the title of the fairy godmother of all Greens in Canada, because you have sprinkled dust onto all of our campaigns and helped all of us be successful. We couldn't do it without you. And then really testing the bounds of Elizabeth's generosity was showing up in Cape Breton 2 summers ago and kind of crashing her family lobster feast dinner at a little cottage, which was really one of the most delightful evenings any of us have had in a long time. And it was so fun just to be really feeling like we were part of Elizabeth's family. And it was a wonderful evening. And on the constituency piece and Elizabeth's action, it was about 2 months ago that I phoned Elizabeth in the middle of the day about a federal jurisdiction issue. Within an hour, she had the federal minister on board and working to solve that issue. It was an astonishing thing to see, but not just solve that issue for one constituent, make sure that it didn't happen again, so that moving forward, Elizabeth has ensured that the system gets fixed. I admire you so much, Elizabeth. You have been my mentor and my teacher. I strive to be the parliamentarian that you have set the bar so high on being, and the champion for good governance, for how to be a politician without being destructive, and how to lead in a way that brings people in. So I just want to thank you for being my teacher and for your decade of generosity and friendship that you've shown me. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Do you want to respond, Elizabeth, or?
I mean, it's overwhelming. I mean, obviously, it's quite overwhelming to hear from my dear friends, David Kuhn and Mike Schreiner, and my leader in British Columbia, Sonja Ferstenell, who, I mean, spectacular. I mean, thinking about Sonia becoming leader, and then less than a week in, Sonia and Adam are in an election, which they just, like, you just absolutely wowed it. So when we say that we love each other, we are truly family. We really do love each other. I totally love Annamie. I can't wait for her to get to Parliament. But the team that we are is also bound up in relationships and friendship, and as you can see, like networks that go way back. And by the way, David Suzuki, I remember the first time I spoke to you, you were speaking in Halifax, and I called every hotel in Halifax pretending I knew you were staying there, and they put me through to you at the Lord Nelson Hotel, and I got you out of the shower. It wasn't my best foot forward in getting to meet one of my heroes, but you forgave me and helped me fight spruce bloodworm spraying in Cape Breton. So anyway, I shouldn't talk now. It'll just be a just, you know, you know how I am. I have deviations from the distractions from the thing that was a non sequitur that I started with. I'm going to go on mute now.
Well, the great thing, Elizabeth, is that when you talk, we always find out something super interesting. That's for sure. Sonia, I just wanted to thank you. That was an interesting line. I wrote it down. Sprinkled fairy dust sort of on all green politicians. That's really something. But the point you made about Elizabeth's generosity of time for providing support to all sorts of people is certainly another characteristic that that we all appreciate and love. Well, Paul Manley is up next. So Paul, of course, has been twice elected in Nanaimo. He's the MP for Nanaimo-Ladysmith. And Paul started making documentary and educational films on topics like human rights, water issues, and then more recently exposing the export of raw bitumen out of the Port of Vancouver. Paul, how did your paths cross with Elizabeth's paths? Boy, that's a hard thing to say. I shouldn't.
Well, I was a young, enthusiastic Yahoo working in the environmental movement, and I was a canvasser for Pollution Probe and Greenpeace and Friends of the Earth when Elizabeth was on the board there. And so I was a big fan, and I was playing in a band in Ottawa, and we would do all kinds of benefits. Barley Mowat spoke at one of them, and Elizabeth May was the keynote speaker at an Earth Day event that I did at the conference center. And I was front man of the lead band, and I was playing a song about Rotten Ronnie, Ronald McDonald, who was chopping down the Amazon rainforest for his beef production. And I was probably not that impressive to Elizabeth at the time, but a big fan and totally enthused by her. And we would run into each other over the years when I was on the National Board of the Council of Canadians. And yeah, I just always really admired you, Elizabeth, for all of the hard work and the championing the environment. And to get me to run for the Greens, there's a story behind that. Of course, people know that my father was arrested, seized in international waters on a mission for peace and justice in the Middle East in international waters, and taken to an Israeli detention center and held for 5 days in Communicado. And I ran into Elizabeth at a protest about Enbridge Northern Gateway at the time, and talked to her about my father's situation. And she was the only member of parliament to speak out for my dad, who was a former NDP MP. And I said a few things, and that ended up in the media. And actually, I got a phone call the same day from Peter O'Neill, where I reiterated some things that I sent in an email that was leaked to him, where I really slammed the NDP for just leaving my father to hang out to dry. And so that was, when I tried to seek the nomination for the NDP, that was ultimately the reason why they wouldn't let me run. But I've never told you this, Elizabeth, that members of the NDP EDA sat me down and told me that probably that wasn't the reason, Israel and Palestine and my father. It was because on my disclosure statement, I donated $100 to your campaign 10 years ago. So really, you're the reason why I didn't get nominated. I couldn't run. But that's all fine.
That was the shrewdest thing I ever did.
You're a smart woman. And,
oh yeah, thinking way ahead.
When I was really upset, and my parents were really upset that I couldn't run, and I wrote a letter to my supporters, and it got leaked to the media, and it became a front page news story. And one of the first calls I got was Elizabeth May saying, well, will you run for the Greens? And I said no. And I said no, I think 4 times, until she had me cornered between my sister and her, and managed to get me to commit to a yes, that I would run. And so in 2015, again, I've heard about these large rallies, and the largest political rally that Nanaimo had seen in years and years and years was when Elizabeth May came to support me in 2015. And we packed the Bowen Auditorium with 1,200 people, standing room only at the back, and had an amazing run. And that was, you know, the one of the closest 4-way races in Canada back then. And then to run in a by-election and get elected. You have been an amazing mentor to me, and I don't know if people know like how hard you work, but you've been, you know, right after getting sworn in, Elizabeth was like, great, now I've got somebody in my caucus. I need you to run down to the finance committee. Here's the budget. I need you to go and defend the Green Party amendments to the budget. And so I hadn't even been sworn in for an hour and a half, and I was already lights, camera, action in a committee room defending the Green Party amendments to the budget. And you gave me your question the first day in Parliament, and Elizabeth would sit there with me, and she'd be going, "This is how it's going to go. You got to do this. You know, oh, you know about this. Get up and talk. Just stand up, and the speaker will pick you, and you can talk." And then she was like, "Oh, listen to this. They're talking about trade, China. You know about Canada-China people. Get up and go." And so I got up and slammed the Conservatives about the Canada-China FIPA and how the Harper government had sold us out. And it was my first time getting heckled. It was like, "Settle down, rookie." and Elizabeth's like, "Don't worry, I get this all the time." But it was like they were howling at me. But never letting up. I think, you know, I'd only been in Parliament for a few days, and we were in the end of the session, and we voted the vote was to stay up until midnight every night. And I said, "Well, what if I disagree with this?" And she said, "Well, you know, you told your constituents you were going to work hard, so you better buckle down. One of us has to go have dinner, and the other one's going to stay here. And you can stay till midnight tonight, and I'll stay till midnight tomorrow, and you can stay till midnight the night after that. We're going to cover every hour that the House is open." And we did that. And I was amazed at how hard your member of Parliament works. How hard you work, Elizabeth. I have trouble keeping up with you. I'm 10 years younger than you. And wow, you're an amazing mentor. You're such a hard worker. You do not give up. You are relentless. And I love you so much. You're, you know, like we are siblings, we're seatmates. And so she puts up with the fact that I don't like wearing socks and shoes, even in Parliament. And
nothing to put up with. I just, you know.
You realize this is being taped, Paul.
Oh, well, whatever.
You're very, and anybody on this call from Nanaimo-Ladysmith, you've got a very hard-working MP, and he's not a rookie anymore. He's figuring out, oh, okay, so I want to do a unanimous consent motion. It's the first time we've ever had a unanimous consent motion get unanimous consent was Paul's motion for justice for UK pensioners living in Canada. They don't adjust the pension for inflation in the UK. It's a really big issue. Paul just stick handled it right through. And I think I just got a message that I should be quiet because we're running late. Okay.
Okay. Love you, Elizabeth. I tried to call my mother tonight and I called you by accident. Sylvia answered.
We're all somebody's. I love your mother. I love your dad. Love your sister. Love your wife. Love your daughter. Love you all.
Thank you very much, Paul. Paul was just describing being in the dizzying world of Elizabeth May, but we have to move on. So our next guest is Lorna Crozier. She's the head of the chair. She's the head chair, sorry, in the writing department at the University of Victoria. But more than that, she's an extraordinary poet who has written 15 books and has also been named an Officer of the Order of Canada. And I think I saw her. She must have the coolest glasses I've seen in a few weeks. Lorna, how did you connect with Elizabeth?
Oh boy, thank you, Harold. I'm no longer chair of the writing department. I retired about 7 years ago, happily so, but that's okay. I once held that position, and I remember standing 10 years ago in that famous airport hangar in Sydney, speaking on Elizabeth's behalf. And at the end of my brief comments, I ended up saying, I've never had a politician before, but Elizabeth May was my politician. And she continues to be. I'm so proud when I can say, whenever I travel across the country, I bet I'm the only one at this table who has 2 Green politicians in my bailiwick, both Elizabeth and Adam, and I know Sonia, and it makes me, and I'd like to know you, Paul, it makes me so proud to have this Green contingent. I was extremely moved by the Pass It Along song, and the first time I heard it, Elizabeth's new husband, John Kidder, sang it, and he had tears in his eyes at the end of it. And I'm so pleased. When I first met Elizabeth, she was single, and it just warms my heart to see how happily married she is, and with a man who can keep up with her and whose stories are just as interesting as hers. I'm so thrilled that they're together, and I can call them both my friends. Recently, Elizabeth told me that she had wanted to ask me to write a poem for the Green celebration of Earth Day, but for some reason she held back. I don't know if you can see Elizabeth as a shy person who sometimes holds back, but in this case she did. And for that reason, I've decided to fulfill her request tonight and read a poem in celebration of the earth and in celebration, of course, of her. My inspiration came from a book I was reading, or I've had on my shelf for almost as long as I've been a poet, called Technicians of the Sacred. And it's a collection of oral poetry, of course, eventually written down from Indigenous people across the world. And it was those poems that were compiled were when poems were sacred and magical, and when we thought that poems could cast spells and could save things. So this poem I've written tonight was inspired by them and inspired by Elizabeth. It's not a short poem, but I hope it's just long enough. It's called Woman Who Holds the Moon in Her Hands. I am a woman of rivers, a woman of old growth forests. I am salmon woman, otter woman, woman of eel grass and clams. I have learned from water how to fall without breaking. I have learned from cedar how to read the sky. I have learned from the sea how to hold the moon in all her phases without causing harm. I am a woman of moss, a woman of cherry blossoms. I am vegetable woman, dear woman, woman of prayer and longing. I have learned from moss how to live on stone. I have learned from blossoms how to open into beauty, how to open into brevity. I have learned from prayer how to speak to mystery and wonder. Things I do not see, I hear. Things I do not know, I seek. The tongues of snakes carry the taste of me into their dark nests underground, yet they do not consume me. This is what I have learned from them. I am a woman of breasts, of limbs, of words. I inhale the breath of all who go before me and those who live close by. The small breath of the field mouse, the blow of the whale, the 1,000 exhalations of leaves as they fall. I learned from water how to flow over and around. I learned from redwood how to stay rooted in the earth without bending down. My name is Winged One. My name is Lightning. My name is Mountain Caribou. My name is the owl who cannot find a home. Look for me and I will find you. I will ask, what brought you here? I will ask, what gifts do you bring for the herring, the hawk, the wolf? I will ask, what of yourself will you give away to save the songbird and the bear? If your answers please me, I will summon the messengers who ride the rain and the wind. I will rub your feet with fat for the journey ahead. I will walk with you in beauty into the rising sun. I will walk with you in beauty into your last day on earth.
Oh, thank you so much.
Oh, wow. Oh, Lorna, thank you so much. Everybody wants to know if we can get a copy of the poem and share.
You bet.
Oh my God. If I'm your politician, you are my poet. Love you so much.
Well, we do have to move on. Thank you again, Lorna. Jenica Atwin, our Green MP representing Fredericton, is unable to make it tonight, but she did send a small message that Paul is going to share with us.
I'll do this very professionally without being a Yahoo. Jenica says, please send Elizabeth my love and admiration. She is the reason I decided to plunge into federal politics after a snowed-in lunch in downtown Fredericton. She's had my back ever since and been a necessary rock as I learned my way. She is the hardest worker I know and fierce as they come. Congratulations to 10 incredible years and a lifetime of fighting for people and the planet. All my love, Jenica.
Wow. Thank you very much, Jenica and Paul, for reading that for her. Our next guest is Sylvia Olsen, an award-winning author, researcher, fantastic knitter, and also happens to be Adam Olsen's mother. Sylvia, how did your connection with Elizabeth start?
Ask Adam how his connection with Elizabeth started, and it was through his mother. Just getting it straight. Yeah, just getting it straight. This is a very hard place to be. Imagine coming after such a lineup. So everything that I was going to say has been said. That sounds a bit cheesy, but it's true. But I'm just going to say a couple of things I think to add. First of all, how did we get together with Elizabeth?
Well, you look like you're 19 or something.
What's that? It was, as Adam said, the Olsen family had already picked their politician in that election. We had talked to a family friend and she was running for the Liberals until we heard that Elizabeth was coming. And I want to speak for all SGI. We heard Elizabeth was coming. Elizabeth is coming. Elizabeth is coming. Oh my God, Elizabeth is coming. So the Olsen family did what the Olsen family always does, which is we had to find out. So as Adam said, we invited her over, and it wasn't climate change. It really wasn't. It was like, you know what? The Olsen family is only going to get into politics if we can find a politician that does it differently. We're not looking for a different message. The whole thing has to be done differently, the whole thing. And if people think you know the Olsen family by knowing Adam, Elizabeth knows that you really don't know it until you know Joni. And Elizabeth came over to our house and and we weren't there to hear from Elizabeth. I found out, I was, but Adam and Joni grilled her with question after question, because they wanted to know for sure that she was going to be a different sort of politician. And everybody here has said what they found out. She's a different sort of politician. And imagine the mother of these upcoming, both of them, not just Adam, but Adam and Joni. Elizabeth has been their political mother. And from me to you, Elizabeth, seriously, who wants two of their kids to go into politics, for one thing? Like, nobody. But then if they do, to have Elizabeth mentor them in such a way, not just mentor as the word sounds, but actually really care about them. Oh my gosh, my children have so benefited from Elizabeth. So I'm going to just talk about that horrible election. I'm serious, that was not a good election. Pat Carney, wherever you are, you were so right. Elizabeth can never win this bloody election. Oh my God. But you know what Elizabeth could do, and we all know, is she can get us to work for her. She can get us, and she mobilized SGI. Oh my gosh, there's a whole ton of us on this call, and they have been working every day since. So if there's one thing a politician needs to do, you know, they're the leader, but a leader has to get people to follow. And Elizabeth really knew how to do that. So we started working. And I did not believe that she could win. I did not believe until we were in that awful airplane hangar that Lorna is talking about. Well, actually, I sort of thought she was going to win a bit earlier, which made it worse, because it's like, maybe I will actually get to vote for somebody who wins. It's never happened to me before, never. Oh, that airplane hangar was so scary. And the whole election was so horrible. We all felt like throwing up. But the last spot to be announced was Elizabeth's, and we were just like, there was hundreds of us in there, and we were freaking with anxiety. So I want to show you. Pat said she didn't think that Elizabeth could win. But we had one trick in the bag here for Elizabeth, and I want to put, somebody's going to put up my slide. Alexa. Yeah, this is what we did. We got everybody working, and we had these signs all over the place. I know you're not supposed to. If Marcus is there, you know, they're all supposed to be official, but we had Kids Go Green. And I just really want to say something about Elizabeth and kids. I want to say something about kids, period, because that song that we heard is about pass it along. And this right here, this is what it's all about. And Elizabeth knows that. And she's able to inspire kids just like she's able to inspire the rest of us. And see the little fellow down here with Kids Go Green. The lovely blonde girl, that's my granddaughter. And the fellow down here is Silas, and that's Adam's son. And in that awful airplane hangar, Silas had his hands tightly around his mother or his father, and he had his fingers crossed the whole time. You can put that down now. Thank you. He had his fingers crossed like this. And Pat, I'm thinking that's it. That was it, because we had the whole family, we had everybody's whole families working for Elizabeth, because she was able to inspire us all. And and I get to say here, just saying, thanks, Harold, I'm Adam's mother, but I have a better hat than that right now. Seriously, for all of you who are on the line, I and my lovely husband, Tex, are Elizabeth's roommates. How about that? We're roommates, seriously. I've never had a roommate, but Elizabeth is my roommate, and we share this beautiful place on Saturna. So we're still learning. 60.
Except we stay 6 feet apart and we wear masks.
Yes, we do. But it's a huge place, so you could do that. But at 66, Elizabeth and John and Tex and I are learning how to be roommates, so it's kind of fun. So thank you all, and you know, love to Elizabeth.
Congratulations, Elizabeth.
From your roommates on Saturna.
Thank you. You left out one other little detail that connects us, is that you asked me to do your wedding ceremony. And I also did, and David and Tara still here, I also did Sarika's wedding up in Quadra. So the weddings I do seem to turn out pretty well.
They do.
But also Sylvia's most important thing. I know I'm talking again. I'm not supposed to. Sylvia was the matchmaker who got John and me together, and John is somewhere in this Zoom. But anyway, thank you for getting me married up. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I just want to jump in, Sylvia and Elizabeth. If you walk down the road to Breezy Bay, that's the house my great grandfather built.
Across the street, Sonia, we can look at it. We're looking at it.
Yeah.
Tex is looking at it right out the door.
So, and that's where Blaze and I met.
Oh, we are.
I knew Blaze before I knew you.
I know. It's a very small and very intertwined world.
Is there anybody else who's single who's looking for a mate right now?
Yes, just phone me and we'll see what we can hook up here. I would like, though, to have as many men as women. That's helpful, Harold. Thank you.
Very good idea. Okay. Thank you so much, Sylvia. And well, if you don't know it, Sylvia is just such a big supporter of Elizabeth's. Anyway, tremendous. Thank you. And we come to our last speaker, last but not least. Cate May Burton, of course, is Elizabeth's daughter. She's earned an MA in Women and Gender Studies and has recently co-authored a book with Sylvia, who was just speaking, about Elizabeth. And I hope I got the title right. Is it Growing Up Elizabeth May? Was that the title?
That's right, Harold.
Good. Okay, take it away, Cate.
All right. Well, I'm delighted to be here to introduce my mother at her 10-year MP-versary. Here's a little clip of the book that Sylvia and I did. Big kudos to Sylvia. She did the lion's share of it. And I thought for introducing my mom tonight, I would read a little bit because our book was just released this week. So to start, I'm going to read you a little bit about when my mom first started thinking about running for the leader of the Green Party of Canada. So that was, 14, 15 years ago, well before she got elected. The thought of becoming a politician kept niggling in her head until one day in 2006, when Elizabeth knew what she had to do. I know it's going to be hard. I know I may not win, but I have to try, she told her family. I think I can be the kind of politician who puts the environment first. I will be the kind of politician who makes good decisions based on good principles, not political power. If I run for the leadership of the Green Party, it will change a lot in our lives. I will be working even more than I do now. Do you think I should? Elizabeth asked her daughter. Someone has to tell the truth about climate change, I told my mom. And she did tell the truth about climate change. And she did become leader of the Green Party, and she did get elected. There's even more in the book. But I'm going to skip backwards to another page where I talk about a lesson that my mom taught me that I think is very important. When I was growing up, my mom shared a lot of her life with me. She was a single mom with only one kid, so we did everything together. I often felt like the weight of the world was on my shoulders because my mom was trying to save the planet. I followed my mom's example and accepted that she had to work so hard to try to win on each campaign she fought. I helped mail thank you letters to Sierra Club supporters, went to meetings and protests with my mom, and sometimes wrote my own letters to newspapers or government officials when I saw something I disagreed with. It can take a lot of mental and emotional energy to sustain activist campaigns. And I knew I needed to give my mom lots of support so she could keep going. I got to see firsthand how important it is for activists to take care of themselves and one another. Even though my mom pushes herself so hard to fight each campaign, she is driven by love for the planet and people. I learned from her that love sustains us. In the first section I read, the real story is that when she said, you know, is it okay if I work harder when I get to be, you know, running for leader of the Green Party? And what I said was, Mom, you already work all the time at Sierra Club. You can't work anymore. And that was actually wrong. We found out that my mom is capable of working more than anyone could ever have imagined. So I'm very delighted to introduce my mom tonight, someone who works way too hard, but she loves with all her heart.
So how lucky am I? This is my girl. And that she would write a book with one of my best friends in the world, with Sylvia, and so many dear friends on tonight's call. And oh my God, darling, I love you so much. And the ways we're all interconnected, I'm thinking about watching Cate walk around the Christmas tree at Suzuki's family Christmas with Sarika and Severin, and the three of them wearing towels on their heads and singing We Three Kings. I mean, we have deep connections, all of us here on this call. It's really hard to imagine. I wanted to, not that I'm trying to prove that I work really hard, but I thought I'd tell you that one of the things I love about my work, and this begins to feel like a retirement party, just make sure everybody knows, running again. Thank you, Pat. Yes, running again. And I have plans, and we need to elect a lot of people, and I will concentrate on that, and I won't talk too long. I'll try. But this Wednesday morning, my first meeting was at 4:30 in the morning. I'm not telling you that just to shock you, but it's just because it's one of my favorite things I do is working with the Global Greens. So we have a Global Greens COP26 working group trying to organize so we can push for the truth, so we can keep holding to what we need to do if there's any chance in the world of holding to 1.5 degrees and all of that work. But at 4:30 in the morning, there's quite something about this weird world of Zoom that we actually congregate. We never used to do that. We never used to try to meet all together virtually. We'd wait till we were actually physically at a COP, and then we'd meet. So we're at the Global Greens meeting, it's 4:30 in the morning, and the Scottish Greens are just coming off cloud 9. They just won 8 seats. They've never won 8 seats before. By the way, the co-leader of the Scottish Greens was born in Canada. Her name's Lorna Slater. But they're just like, they're saying, well, you know, we've been quite busy. We're quite tired now, you know, really, because now we're busy, you know, and we're negotiating. And they're talking about negotiating with the SNP, the Scottish Nationalist Party. So yes, so they're going to be in government. And they're saying, but the New Zealand Greens are giving us a lot of help for how you go about that, because it was the New Zealand Greens in 2017 who put Jacinda Ardern in, because Labour and Greens in New Zealand can work together because they got rid of first past the post. They're mixed member proportional. So that's why they're still in Parliament, even, and not just Parliament, they're in cabinet with Jacinda Ardern now, because James Shaw is just so awesome. And so they're working, and then the UK Greens, it's just like, well, we're tired too. We just came off the municipal elections. We have 500 elected local councillors. We've never had so much success up and down the country. We defeated Labour. We defeated Conservatives. We're 500 now elected. And when we have the next national election, Carolyn Lucas, who was the first person to break through first past the post a year before me, won't be alone anymore. Carolyn's been in the Palace of Westminster by herself since 2010. And we don't think we're doing all that well in Canada because there's 3 of us in federal parliament. You should see Carolyn Lucas's face whenever I mention it. So, and the German Greens are looking forward to being ahead. They're already in the polls leading. For the first time ever, they have a candidate for chancellor in Annalena Baerbock. So they think, okay, we might win. So we always think, okay, we're doing well, but actually we lift each other up. When Greens do well anywhere, Greens do well everywhere. When Greens became the official opposition in PEI, it just bolstered us for the next wave. And when I think about that packed auditorium, that airplane hangar rally, I have to say I'm missing some people, because the speakers there, of course, Bill Henderson and Valdi played and did that amazing song about Elizabeth. It was so great. But I miss Arthur Black, and he spoke that night for me. And I miss Fraser Smith, who was a leading conservative business person in Sydney, who had a lot to do with bringing people around and getting Saanich-Gulf Islands to vote Green. And that rally, Can Wu, yes, you were there, and so was Lorna reading her, calling me her politician. And it was magnificent and so much fun. And I'm just deeply grateful to so many of you for sticking with me all these years. For those of you who were at the wedding, when Sylvia shows that picture of Kids Go Green, that little Madison, that was the voice that sang How Great Thou Art. Just, you know, for those of you who were at the wedding. Everyone was invited to the wedding. I'm sorry if you missed it, but we were counting on word of mouth. My husband's on this call too. Love you, sweetheart. So all I want to say now, because I don't want to talk too much longer, you've been amazing that 100 participants have stayed on from the beginning, and people have kind of come and gone, but we're still at 100. I need to ask you one big favor before we sign off. I could go on and on. Oh my God, could I go on about Cowichan and Tom Berger and my God, and David Schindler. Anyway, thank you, David, for that. I just wanted to say that we made history when we had a breakthrough in SGI, and it wasn't me that made history. It was a lot of the people on this call, plus hundreds and thousands more who, as Sylvia said, we all worked. We knocked on doors, we waved at intersections. I had people who said they voted for me because they made eye contact at a red light, smiled and waved, and then realized, oh darn, I was going to vote NDP, but now I've smiled and waved at it. It would be like lying, right? Making connections with voters is a very interesting thing, and there's no science to it. It's all about letting people know that you want to work for them and you want to work hard and you love them. That's a big part of our doing politics differently. We need to make history again. We made history on October 3rd when the members of this party elected Canada's first Black leader. That's amazing. First Black woman leader, that's double amazing. First Black woman Jewish leader, yes, amazing. First Green Party candidate to get elected federally in a Liberal stronghold in Ontario. Because Mike Schreiner proved we could do it when he won in Guelph. We can win. It's not, but some people, the media seem to think, yeah, Greens, they get elected on coasts. Must be the sea air. It invigorates the mind. It fills you with inspiration and magic fairy dust. I'm with you there, absolutely, Sonia. But the fairy dust has to land really heavily on Toronto Centre, because with Annamie with us in Parliament, I think we're going to be at 12 seats at the end of the next election, and then we'll get what Paul and Jenica and I really need, which is participatory rights. The little teeny weeny rights I had in 2011 when I first got elected, they've shrunk them. They've shrunk my rights, honey. They shrunk my rights. They've been doing it nonstop since we first started getting elected. Paul can tell you that just between when he was elected in spring of 2019 and after the 2019 election, they took away our rights. They just hate that we're able to be effective and not have recognized party status. As soon as we get recognized party status, no matter if our caucus is 12 or 15 or 20, we're going to really be able to do so much more. When I say they're taking our rights, when I was first elected, I got one question a week in question period. It's now one question every 3 weeks, and with the 1 week breaks, it comes out to one question a month. I'm not griping or complaining. I'm just saying we have to make history again, which means we have to start fundraising now. And I'd like to ask you to stick with me through a Dutch auction where we're going to have a lot of help to make this work, because we want to raise the funds tonight to give them to Annamie Paul for the Toronto Centre campaign, where I can tell you the Liberals are already getting kind of nasty about how well we're doing in Toronto.